Hello and welcome back to Wayne's Strange Brain. Since people seem to not hate the last style where I just kind of rambled for a little while and added video and pictures, that's what I'm going to do again this time. So it's been a really crazy few weeks if you're in the trading card world, or if you're me, or if you're people who are now suddenly selling this, even when they said they wouldn't, and also, of course, not getting me any money. It's been a really, really crazy few weeks. And I'll go ahead and say again, sorry if that's a real bummer for you. If you're a TCG collector, if you're vintage, it's really disappointing to see kind of mixed scans going on. But if you're a collector of some of the new stuff and you're looking towards the future, I have some good news. The things that we did in the last video, digitally peeking inside a pack of Pokemon cards, it's possible to prevent it. And there's a few things that you can do. There's some process control things. There's some physical scan ruining things. There's detection mechanisms. So without further ado, let's get into it. And the first kind of easiest thing you can do is stop putting your hits in the same spot. So this applies to Pokemon, but a lot of manufacturers do this. Is Pokemon Vintage, all of the foil cards are facing the same way, and they're in the fourth position, and that's great for pack breaks and being able to dramatically reveal it, but it's also really great for people who are fishing for these special cards. There's not a whole lot of contrast in the CT scans, especially if you're trying to do it quickly or for a profit or, whatever. But if you know exactly where it is, you can just look exactly there and you don't have to look through 11 spots. So uh, put it in a different orientation, put it, in a different spot. And if you really want, you can just have something like at the very first card, it says hit incoming in 3 or in 5. And that way you know where it is and you could dramatically reveal it. All right, so that's number one. Number two, stop using such dense inks. Pokemon again, but the reason it's possible to look at old holographic cards, and this is something that I mentioned, is it's not the foil that we're looking at. It's the ink on top of the foil. The ink on top of the foil, they made them with dense inks, and they still do. In fact, not all inks in modern cards are scanned. Let's show, I guess, here's a VMAX card. Again, I'm still just talking out loud. But here's a VMAX card. So, some people ask me, can this work on modern? And if you've been, keeping up to date, yes, it does work on modern. But it doesn't work on all modern cards equally. So I've got modern holographic cards that it works on and modern holographic cards that it doesn't work on. Still works on reverse holos, all the ones I've tested. And VMAX, absolutely, yes, siree, it does work. So switch to organic inks or at least inks that aren't quite so heavy metal. Don't lay it on so thick. And yeah, so that's another process thing. All right, number three, radiation detection. Sure. Everyone kind of says, yeah, put something in the pack that changes color with exposure to radiation. And this is technically feasible. The easiest thing would probably be to take some film, some self-developing film, or for valuable boxes, or just some film, and it'll spot up when it's exposed to radiation. You can't take film in modern TSA CT scanners without them being exposed unless they're a very long exposure film. But if it's fast film, you can't bring it, so we can exploit that. This company also makes a dosimeter that will change color in reaction to radiation. Here's some concept art of, you can make the card itself change color, either to ruin it or just as an indicator. The problems are a few. One is that radiation exists everywhere. In background radiation, CT scans at airports and X-ray at the border. But generally speaking, these industrial scans, especially to be able to see which card it is more exposure, it's longer terms. And you know what? This might be a viable engineering solution to deter people if you open a pack or you buy a box and it says obviously it's been scanned. Well, don't buy from that person anymore. That would, I think, discourage scanning. All right, number four. So I'm taking a new job, but one of the things I've been doing for the last several years for my job, which is scanning things in industry as a service, is trying to make scans look good. And I'm going to help you make scans look bad. So that's number 4, make scans look bad. And the things we're going to focus on are metal and motion. And so metal, kind of intuitively, people want to put the packs in like lead foil. And yeah, that would work. Lead is not actually that cheap. It's not economical or environmentally friendly. It's not safe. Um, it's kind of silly. You don't need to wrap your boxes in lead. That would work, but it's not even the best solution because it turns out if you imagine like a uh, kind of an ideal sphere and you have some metal around something you want to hide, okay? The beam will be attenuated by the metal. That's correct. And it'll change the average energy, something called beam hardening. So X rays occur as a white light kind of a spectrum. So there's many different wavelengths. And it turns out that, especially at the lower energy wavelengths, which are needed for getting contrast with cards, the spectrum is affected more strongly by dense metals, okay? Or by high atomic elements, whatever. And so it turns out that if you wrap, your card in a dense metal like lead or steel or, something like that, is the beam will on average get harder. No Metapod jokes, please, but it'll get kind of a more energetic, it'll have less energy overall, but the average energy will increase. And the thing is, this is really bad for scanning because the low energy X-rays are actually what's necessary for getting contrast on cards, all right? So that's good. You can do that. But the issue is, with enough time, even those high energy X-rays will give you enough contrast to see what you're looking for. You just need a longer exposure to get a better signal or contrast to noise ratio. So what can we do? The trick here, and this is probably the meat of the video, is you create random metal patterns, random or ordered or grid, sequins, stars, stripes, powders, meshes, wools, whatever, but unevenly distributed. And what this does is, in some areas, the beam hardening will stack. In some areas, you don't get any. You get scatter. You get all sorts of problems. And I didn't just, say this out of the blue. I tested this. So I have basically two kind of styles of this. Is one is this poisoned card that goes into a pack. And this can be made pretty cheap and pretty effective, depending on what material you want to use. And what I have here is I actually just, kind of painted onto this magic card, which is some kind of like crypt checking card. I forget off the top of my head. Again, I'm just talking out loud. But I just took some super glue and some tungsten powder, and I painted it on. And tungsten's not really that expensive. It's used to weight golf clubs. It's not the only material you can use, but it is very effective. And what you get, I scanned this, and you can see the before scan. Of course, we can see the cards. I have this Topps Gold, you can see, and we've got a VMAX card, a modern Pokemon card, and you can see the cross section. You can see the on the face part of the carve, virtually unwrapped. Again, patent pending. And yeah, no problem. Check out the poison card. This scan sucks. And what we see is, kind of intuitively, close to the poisoned card, we have a worse scan. It's just, we've got all this noise. I wouldn't be able to tell what that is. And then as you get further away, we have less noise. The scan still is damaged. This would stack up, the more material you have, the worse it is. But the scan would be damaged wherever you are, but it's worse in right next to the poison card. So you put this next to your hit, and you're good to go. Okay. And then the other idea here is other than the poison card is you create these kind of this mesh pattern, and you could put that on the inside of the box. And I tested a couple materials. Copper mesh, like for rat proofing, is awesome. Also pretty good is steel wool. Not as good, but dirt cheap. So, it's viable for lining, the average box. All right. And then this kind of just ruins the scan everywhere. Not, quite like the, really dense card right next to it. But, in combination with those, a couple things, I think this is actually a pretty effective strategy for pretty cheap. All right, and then one more that's kind of conceptual, but by the way, because I just really hope I would love to get like a penny per pack from a manufacturer. This basic these kind of the more out of the box, no pun intended, ideas are patent pending. Again, not that anybody cares about the first patent pending. We'll see how that plays out. But this one is as well. I fired for a provisional, fairly recently. But anyway, one of the biggest problems we have in industrial scans is the part moves. And so, unlike a medical CT, and this is important, unlike a medical CT, industrial scans, which are kind of necessary for a lot of what we're trying to see, they move the object, they rotate the object, and they also move the object linearly. They'll move it out of the way to take what we call as reference images, and they'll move them up and down if we're trying to stitch multiple scans together. But in any case, they move the object. And we try real hard to avoid motion. So once again, let's do the opposite. What we can do is we can make the packaging a little bit looser. We can add like crumpled up tissue paper or better yet metal foil to also do the whole metal artifact thing. And we can just make the pack like rattle around a little bit. And we can, make it cushiony or spongy or springy or put it on a little suspended harness or use these little rollers, whatever protects the cards. But the idea is if you can spin the pack or the box and the cards move even a little bit, the resolution on these scans is so high that just a tiny bit of motion really messes up the scan. So that's really what I have for you. Again, vintage, that's a whole other story. If I were doing this as a service, it wouldn't be just, scan it and give you the data and, do whatever you want with it. I'd really love to give you a certificate, TM Pikachu services or CAT grading, where you get a certificate, you get something to be proud of. You know what's in there, you know what the centering is, you know what the condition is. You don't feel like you have to open it because you get the same kind of general experience. So that's how I would do it. I don't really have the time right now to do that, but if you are interested in partnering as general, feel free to contact me. If you're a manufacturer and you're interested in licensing this or just working with me to help improve your packaging based on my experience CT scanning and especially CT scanning cards, again, feel free to contact me. I really want to help. Again, this is something that people do for fun. This is a hobby, and let's let's look towards the future. All right, so that's all I have. Again, another ramble. I'll be, hopefully editing this over the next like week or two, not breakneck like before. But if you enjoyed, please consider subscribing, give me a like, give me a comment, and I'll see you next time. Bye.